All right, what's going on, everybody? What's going on? Heads up, no Schaefer today, so it's going to be us. Very, very much encourage you guys today to throw comments up on YouTube. I'm going to do my best to try to get to them as the show goes on. But anytime you're doing a solo show, definitely going to try to look at some of these comments and make you guys a part of the show. So just a heads up, we'll be starting in a few minutes here, and just wanted to give everybody a heads up on YouTube that solo. So we'll try to get everybody involved as much as we can, and again, probably starting in a couple of minutes here. This is awful. The squad is, I guess the squad is what it is, right? Like, I don't think we have to, I don't think there's, obviously, no real crazy news on them losing, but they're 2-5 over their last 7 since the All-Star break. So it's been as shitty as it can get. All right. We'll get to you guys. So John, not here today. We'll be doing the
Here's
show.
what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by iHeartAdvertising.com.
As the show goes on, you got any
Padres
comments,
lost Game 4 of their series against the Braves today, 6-5. Their next move is they will move on to Miami to start a weekend series with the Marlins tomorrow. In NFL news, the first overall pick in the draft, Fernando Mendoza, signed his rookie deal with the Raiders today. Mendoza signed a 4-year deal worth $57 million, fully guaranteed, with an option for a 5th year. Running business and not thinking about radio? Think again, because people are listening to radio more today than they did 20 years ago. And only iHeartRadio connects with more Americans than TV, digital, and even social. Learn how radio can help your business. Call 844-844-iHeart.
It's Schaefer and Sliwa. Sean Schaefer and San Diego's own Alan Sliwa. You're Schaefer and Sliwa.
What is going on, everybody? Thank you very much for tuning in. San Diego Sports 760. Solo today. No John Schaefer. Man deserves a day off. Let the man breathe a little bit here. Obviously, 3 hours. We'll go till 6 o'clock today. Got a couple of guests. SDFC, NBA guest as well. But, of course, this show will be primarily focused on San Diego Padres baseball. So, John and I were getting ready yesterday to just when we were about to leave. Both him and I, on the show, we're talking about it. And we're saying to ourselves, we're like, hey, by the time we come back in here today, they'll have played 2 games against the Atlanta Braves, and either they'll go 3-1 against Atlanta, they'll split it 2-2. Or we're going to walk in here on Thursday afternoon, and the Padres will lose 3-4 to Atlanta on top of the series loss they had against the Kansas City Royals. And as everybody keeps saying, by the way, I don't even know how long we've been doing this, how long we've been talking about this is an important series. And, oh, my gosh, what happens here if the Padres, this is the most important stretch that's coming. I feel like we've been doing that for a solid month, maybe even a month and a half or so. And every San Diegan and every Padre fan has been disappointed as the season continues to progress. So right now, the Padres 2-5 in the first 7 games out of the All-Star break. And if this was supposed to be one of the most important stretches that the Padres were going to have, just an utter failure up to this point. And you could say, listen, people could say, they've been fighting, and yesterday, they go down, 7-1, fight all the way back, make it 7-6. They still lost the game. Today, however you want to describe today, Griffin Canning doing what he's done pretty much the entire season for the Padres, but you went up 3-0 against Chris Sale, and you still found a way to lose. The Padres find ways to lose. And typically, that's what bad teams do. Again, I go back to what I just said. All I've been hearing about, go listen to any podcast, go listen to this show, anybody talking Padres baseball, all we keep doing, everybody's doing it. Everybody keeps doing is talking about how just critical of a series this is going to be, how important that is going to be, that this is the most important stretch run for the San Diego Padres. Tell me in any of these predicaments or situations that you walked away saying, hey, I feel good about the situation. I feel great about the situation. Here's a question I'll throw out there. And anytime you're doing a solo show, obviously the style of show is going to be a lot different. So I do encourage people who are out driving around or you're listening on the iHeartRadio app, 877-767-4760. I'll leave the topics open. You know, I'm completely open to hearing what Padre fans have to say, just their thoughts on the team, the position that the squad is in. 50-53. You know, there was a time that the Padres this year were 11 games over 500. Since that point, that were 11 games over 500, they have the worst record in the NL. So the moment that they had the best record, or they were 11 games over 500, one of the better records in the National League, one of the better records in all of baseball, they got the worst record in the NL since that point. And now, you know, obviously the question kind of shifts and it churns. And I guess the question I would have is this: if everybody knows that this stretch after the All-Star break is kind of the make it or break it time, everybody knows that, and I've heard AJ Preller say this before, and it's, you know, this obviously isn't the first time that he said this, but AJ Preller has basically said, hey, at the end of the day, the team is going to dictate whether I'm aggressive or not at the trade deadline, which I don't fully believe, because I think AJ Preller is clearly the most aggressive president of baseball operations in all of baseball. Can somebody make a case for me how you buy? Can someone try to convince me what would be the reason for buying? Because here's the other problem too. I think the other issue that the Padres are going to run into, let's just say this, and if we're just hanging on pins and needles and everything that happens in San Diego, everybody cares about is, you know, obviously what happens between now and the trade deadline. Here's the issue that I have with, you know, obviously the concept of trying to buy and trying to be aggressive and saying, hey, you know what, let's give this another shot. And there's other players that are going to be coming back. And frankly, you know, I'm as desperate as any other Padre fan. So I'm with everybody that says, hey, just get into the postseason. If you can get in the playoffs, anything can happen. Frankly, you know, it's not like the city of San Diego has this unbelievable track record of championships and all these pro teams and everything else. Everything is kind of hanging on the balance of what the Padres do. But here's the issue with trying to make a case of trying to convince AJ Preller that, hey, AJ, if this is the stretch that you're going with and they're going to determine whether, you know, you go make a move at the trade deadline. The problem is they're about to run into 9 games where they're all winnable games. So Brent, this is kind of the, let's just say Miami, who's been struggling. Let me see where, you know, since they were awful. Remember, they went on the stretch. They lost 7-8 games in a row. I just want to see where they are since they've lost 9 games in a row. They're 1-9 in their last 10. So Miami continuing to struggle.
So they'll sweep us this weekend.
Well, no, okay. Let me play it the other way. Let's just, the Padres' next 9 games are Miami, Colorado, 8 games actually. Miami, Colorado, and San Francisco. No, it's a 2-game set against Colorado, 4-game set against San Francisco. So their next 9 games are against Miami, Colorado, and San Francisco. Miami's lost 9 in a row. Colorado and San Francisco have 2 of the worst records in all of Major League Baseball. So if they went over that 9-game stretch, and that takes us to August 2nd, and August 3rd is the trade deadline. If over that 9-game stretch, the Padres went 6-3, should they now all of a sudden become buyers because they went 6-3 against a team that's lost 9 in a row? Colorado, obviously one of the worst records in San Francisco. This is, AJ Preller is going to do everything he can to try to convince himself that he wants to buy. And I get it. I understand it. Like I said, there is desperation in San Diego for wanting to compete. Whether we want to admit it or not, there is desperation. Plus, there's this question mark of nobody knows how long this window is open for if it hasn't already closed. Can you really take anything from these next 9 games to now tell you whether you should be buying or selling at the trade deadline?
It depends what you're looking at. I don't think AJ's actually looking at their record. I think he's just paying attention to how many games out of the wild card they are. So if, they keep up this stretch to where, we talked about it earlier in the week about how, somehow they keep gaining ground on teams
by default, right? Because everybody else was losing.
So if that keeps up and we get to, August 2nd and they're, 2 games out of the wild card, I think in AJ's mind, he's going to be like, oh, dude, we're in.
Okay.
And he'll totally disregard, say right now, we're 3 games under 500. Say we're 5 games under 500, but we're some miracle. We're only 2 games out of the wild card.
Sure.
He won't look at the 5 games under 500. He'll just look at the 2 games out and go, all right, bye.
All right. So Arizona down 2-0 right now to the Cardinals. Both of those teams, it's kind of a wash, whatever happens. And I'm looking at just trying to look at the standings at the same time here. The point that I'm trying to make is by the time today's all said and done, the Padres will either be 3.5 back or 4 games back, since Arizona and the Cardinals right now are both half a game away from each other. So depending on that game, they'll either continue to be 3.5 back or they will be 4 back if Arizona wins that game. It's kind of fascinating. Like, what you just said, there's kind of 2 different paths to take. Let's say I take my emotion out of it, which ain't easy. And it's not easy if you're a sports fan to take your emotion out of it. If you actually genuinely care about the team that you're rooting for or the team that represents your city. I'm going to take my emotion completely out of it. Let's just remove my emotion. This is just the type of baseball that I watched all year, what the Padres actually are, players that you can't rely on. That starting rotation, not only depleted, but the dudes the dudes that do come out have just been awful other than Michael King. And it's not like Michael King's the best pitcher in baseball, but I'm a big fan of Michael King. So I'll put him to the side. But do you really know what Walker Buehler is going to give you every outing? Do you know what? And he's actually done better than he should have, done better than what some of the expectations were. If I 100% removed my emotion, I'm an objective, somebody that doesn't care about San Diego and doesn't care about the Padres, I would tell you it would be the most idiotic thing to buy at this deadline. If I remove myself, which I can't, because I'm going to go back and I'm going to make some cases the other way. But does anyone, if you had somebody that just covers the league or somebody that's just a fan of baseball and just watched the San Diego Padres 3 games below 500, struggling to get into that final wild card spot against trash teams that aren't going to do anything once the postseason actually starts, and somebody would try to make the argument that this team should buy, I wish I could be objective. I can't, but that's my initial reaction when I take all emotions out of it.
I'm in sell mode. I don't think there's even any question now. And it's one of those things too, where, okay, say they do sneak into the playoffs. So I don't think they're going to do anything when they get in there, especially we still have no clue on if we're going to see Pivetta or Musgrove throw a single ball this season. Mm-hmm. So if, let's just say, neither one of those guys come back and we just have to go in there with what we got, it's going to be similar to what happened to the Cubs last year. The Cubs literally had no pitching left, so their whole playoff rotation consisted of Jameson Taillon and Imanaga, and you can't just go into the playoffs with 2 pitchers in your rotation.
And who did the Padres lose to?
Yeah, because that was the first game.
Chicago Cubs.
That was the first game, though. After that, though, they had to just keep recycling using the same 2 starters, and I think that's what it's going to be. We're not going to win any games going in there, with JP Sears and having to do starters for most of our stuff.
I think the problem is even just making the postseason is a question mark. All right, let's do this. When we come back, we'll spend a little bit more time on this frustrating afternoon. Griffin Canning has just been awful for the San Diego Padres. They put a reliever in to start the game. There's a critical situation in the game where maybe Craig Stammen could have gotten with Matsui. Or he keeps Griffin Canning in the game. Canning ends up giving up a 3-run homer. People would say, well, why didn't you go lefty on lefty? Probably because it was the 4th freaking inning, and your starting pitcher needs to give you some innings. We'll get into that coming up next. There's also some just some great conversation just in general about what the Padres obviously do from here. And like I said, if you're out, I mean, I will tell you, if we don't get San Diegans picking up the phone and giving their opinion about the Padres today, I don't know when we will. So let's make it happen today. Give me your thoughts about the state of the San Diego Padres. Now 3.5 games back of a wild card spot. They're 2-5 over this 7-game stretch since the All-Star break. 877-767-4760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app. This is San Diego Sports 760. All right, San Diego Sports 760 has 9 chances to win $1,000 every weekday with the Bonus Bucks giveaway. That's every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. Listen for the keyword, then enter it at sportssd.com. Your next chance to win $1,000 coming up after 4 p.m. on San Diego Sports 760. I call out San Diego for a quick second. I'll call them out. We should have people calling in. Giving their opinion more about the Padres. I hate that there are not more people. And I know there's a lot of proud Padre fans, a lot of proud San Diegans, but that part confuses me. Now, listen, I've got a short track record in San Diego. I'm born and raised here, obviously spent most of my life here, but only been on radio for about 4 months here in San Diego. Phone number is 877-767-4760. We got a couple people on hold, which is fine. But I do want more, as much as we can. Make this show part of your chance to, get whatever it is off of your chest. Maybe I'm more old school and I come from, the background of you do pick up the phone and you do talk about your sports squad and you do bitch and complain. That comes with the territory. Would love to hear that more on this show as well. I got a couple of these YouTube comments. I know the world is different today, how everybody does consume some of this stuff, but a couple of YouTube comments that I'm going to put in here on the mix. Here's one. You buy because we're only 3 games back and we're not so proud of an organization that we do everything we can for a playoff appearance. I mentioned to you guys, if I'm being objective and I'm trying to take the emotion out of it, and I'm pretending that I'm not from San Diego and I'm not a Padre fan, I can't convince myself why I would do it. Now, I think this comment is interesting for the mere fact that if you are somebody here in San Diego, you do understand how important it is to try to make a postseason run. And you do understand how critical it is because anything can happen, because we've seen other teams do this. We've seen wild card teams make the postseason and then go on to either make the World Series or actually win a World Series. And in San Diego, there is a little bit of, you're hoping for a little bit of a Hail Mary. If I was making an argument why A.J. Preller still should try to be aggressive before the trade deadline and add pieces, not subtract pieces, I would just say that hopefully health comes back soon and some of these key players that you're out or that have been out, and, obviously talking about the Nick Pavettas and talking about the Joe Musgroves, even getting guys back, the Jeremiah Estradas and Duhar's not out for the season, getting him back. Jason Adam. I mean, the Padres have had key members of their rotation and key members of their team that have been out. You're not 6-7 games back where you're saying to yourself, all right, let's get the hell out of the picture here. And there is a little bit of, well, what if you were able to make the playoffs? And what if you were able to be one of these franchises like we've seen in the past that have got in and went on a run? And what if there is a piece of this that I think is attached to the San Diego part of it where you don't know what tomorrow holds and you have no idea if the Padres will eventually, if this thing will just fizzle out and they won't get more playoff opportunities in the near future, or it's going to be more challenging to get it because you got so many guys that are on this roster. They're going to eat up a lot of your dollars. And what is the new salary cap? And is the team, will MLB go into a lockout? I get it. There are reasons that you can make of like, as long as there's a window of opportunity, take your chances on that window of opportunity. But obviously not everybody agrees with that. And like I said from the beginning, I have a difficult time making a little bit of a case of it. Dave is on hold. Dave, appreciate you waiting on hold. What's going on, brother? You're on San Diego Sports 760.
Yeah, I heard the calling by you for us to kind of step up and.
There's Dave. If I'm being honest with you, and maybe because I could be just a little ticked off because the Padres can't win a game. Yeah, highly disappointing. And this is, I mean, for me, I've been in sports talk radio since I was 19 years old. And it's an honor for me to be sitting here in a mic in front of San Diego and to have a microphone in front of me, but disappointed in just like there's not enough people that I think are maybe as ticked off as I am. I don't know, is what it is. What's your thoughts?
Well, I've been at it since 1969 because I'm older than you. So, just think about those of us who are still living that started from day one, and you can imagine the nonsense that we've been through. But, look, first of all, the Padres treat things, I say Padre fans, kind of like ifs and buts for candies and nuts. We'd all have a Merry Christmas. And we've always got that if thing here, not anything close to solidity here. So, and then we've got the other folks that sit in the Charlie Brown pumpkin patch waiting for the great pumpkin to show up, when at some point in time, Alan, here's my point. We've got to look at the history here since the contract boys showed up in 2019. What have they gotten here? You've gotten a couple of playoff appearances, but to date, right now, this team is closer to the Rockies in the standings than they are the Dodgers. You have no pitching that's legitimate in the starters. There's not enough pitching out there in the trade market that would make this team legitimate. So what you're wishing for,
and Dave, on top of that, there's going to be so many buyers as well, because there are a lot of teams that are still in the mix. Obviously that price is going to continue to go up. So that obviously is not helping.
Right. Alan, that's exactly my point. And so when I say to people, what pitchers are you going to bring in here? There's about a need. I called last week and told you guys at least 20 pitchers are needed by the buyers. Where are you going to get these guys from? Who are they? So this notion that somehow you're going to fix the pitching at the trade deadline, no, this should have been done and could have been done with better foresight back in the offseason. That's when you build
David, and I appreciate you calling in. Here's what I'll go back to, and thank you for your thoughts. Here's the only thing I'll go back to as we go back to the offseason. It doesn't have much to work with. There's so much dollars that are committed here. I think, obviously having Nick Pivetta coming back and working out a deal for Michael King. The problem with the Padres is they just got no margin for error, and they need these dudes not just to step up, but be better than advertised. I mean, some of these, look at what Ty France has done so far this year. Ty France has been absolute. I think he has 5 home runs since the All-Star break. There have been guys that have stepped up, but the roster building and finding a way, hey, here's what they're going to go do in the summer. They're not in a position to do that because so much of their money is already tied up to guys that are not producing enough. Now, give Tatis, Machado, and Jackson Merrill, some of these other guys, some credit here over these last, let's say, month or so. Merrill a lot shorter of a sample size of that. But for the most part, I think most people would understand that there's a lot of players that haven't really lived up to their value or their net worth. All right, I want to play Craig Stammen when we come back. So we'll go to break here. When we come back, we'll get a chance to hear from Craig Stammen. We'll do that coming up next. Stay right here. San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by iHeartAdvertising.com. The Padres lost Game 4 of their series today against the Braves in Atlanta, 6-5. Now, next they're on to Miami to start a weekend set with the Marlins tomorrow. In NFL news, the first overall pick in this year's draft, Fernando Mendoza, signed his rookie deal today with the Raiders. Mendoza signed a 4-year, $57 million fully guaranteed deal with a option for a 5th year. Run a business and not thinking about radio? Think again, because people are listening to radio more today than they did 20 years ago. And only iHeartRadio connects with more Americans than TV, digital, and even social. Learn how radio can help your business. Call 844-844-iHeart.
All right, I don't have to tell anybody that the San Diego Padres are struggling, falling in the standings. Currently, as we sit here, the Padres now in the wild card race. Arizona Diamondbacks in front of them. The Cardinals, the Pirates, Miami, and the Washington Nationals. So 5 teams in front of you. By the way, this is incredible. This is very, very interesting. Do you know if you're the Miami Marlins, you could lose 9 games in a row and still be in front of the San Diego Padres? How is that possible? How's that possible? How's that a stat? How is that? How am I staring at these standings and I see Miami 52-51. They've lost 9 games in a row. Miami, I'm not talking about like a real playoff team. The Marlins. And they're still in front of the San Diego Padres. Padres start a 3-game set coming up tomorrow. They finish off this road trip against Miami, a 10-game road trip out of the All-Star break against the Miami Marlins, who have lost 9 games in a row. And let me tell you something. Miami feels just as good about breaking that losing streak as the Padres do of getting back on track. So we'll find out which team is worse tomorrow and through this weekend. All right, let me play some quick sound here. We have Craig Stammen, who we're going to play here in just a second. Here's the one thing I will say. So the Padres obviously lose to the Atlanta Braves. There's a few things in here that I want you guys to listen to because there are a couple of things that I find interesting. So we'll listen to the full interview. This is post game. And then we'll react to it. Take a quick listen here. Is Craig Stammen.
3 against one of the best pitchers, and how frustrating is it you can't keep these leads?
Yeah, I think little victim to the home run, 4 of them today. Couldn't keep the ball in the ballpark, and when the other team hits 4 home runs, it's tough to win ball games. We've scratched and clawed in that second inning against Sale, got 3 on the board, felt really good about that, and their bullpen's really good. We still scored 2 off their bullpen, put a rally together in the 9th, so a lot of positive things from our offense, against one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Pitching's got to pick up our offense in that situation.
Yeah, when your offense does keep doing this, including rallies and all that, just how difficult is it to win?
Yeah, it's very difficult when, all the pieces of the baseball team aren't working in sync. It's a very difficult thing to do. And at times this year, we've had, different entities doing very well and the other entities kind of lagging behind. And right now we're in one of those time periods where the offense is starting to go a little bit and the pitching is just not, the starting pitching really is not holding up kind of their end of the bargain. And even some of the relievers, a little bit, we're struggling, in different roles and stuff like that. So, we got to find a way to piece it together with the rotation, the bullpen, the pitching staff together. I know these guys are working hard behind the scenes and, better days are ahead for those guys.
But look, Matsui may have been ready for the lefty lane in the 4th. What was the thought process, sticking with Cam?
Yeah, I don't think he was quite ready for Smith. He was ready for the next guy. Just it was one of those scenarios where we needed Griff to go more innings if possible. And you're weighing is one more inning worth one better matchup? And once he got 2 outs, I kind of stuck with Griff there to see if he get through that inning and then maybe possibly handle a few more. But ultimately, it didn't work out that way.
What was the challenge for him today, from your perspective?
I think he just missed a spot on 3 different pitches and he had to pay for it. Really, we got beat. Honestly, you look at the back of the series and what are the critical plays? 2 catcher's interference plays kind of cost us the series. And that guy over there is kind of known for that. And unfortunately, our catchers weren't back far enough to prevent that from happening.
That was a big talking point going into this year, that he's known to.
Yeah, I think around the league, everybody knows that he's, catcher's interference getter. Crony's got that a little bit too in him. In that situation today, Freddie's coming up to throw the guy at second, and that's a little tougher situation.
As Griffin continues to struggle with his command, I know you don't have nearly all your options right now for the rotation. How much leash can you sort of give him?
Yeah, it's well thought out. I mean, I think we've got to go back to the drawing board and see where we can, help Griffin be the most successful. Whether that's putting him out there every 5 days or giving him some time in the bullpen or what, all options are on the table. All options are on the table for the entire pitching staff, really. I mean, that's kind of how we've been trying to mix and match the last, week or so and a few days. So continuing to do that in Miami.
How are you kind of learning to balance this? Like, you need innings from these guys. Obviously, these games are also very important. Like, what is that balance and how are you navigating?
Yeah, it's a tough balance. It's every day we're, trying to sit down and figure out what the best plan is for our pitching staff. And it's not we're probably taking the long view out of it as much. I mean, there still is a long view, but we've got to be in a little bit of the short term and, kind of go from there.
All right, that's Craig Stammen, manager of the Padres, Craig Stammen. One thing here that I will like to clear up, because, part of that conversation, and if we're just talking about this game, and, this isn't a post-game show, so I'm not trying to make it one, but there was one instance in the game this morning against the Atlanta Braves, and it's brought up post-game about, hey, do you bring in Matsui or do you keep Griffin Canning in the game? That situation, lefty on lefty. Kyle Hart started the game. He pitched the first inning. You're asking Griffin Canning. I hope people are not looking at that situation, and Griffin Canning ends up giving a 3-run homer in the fourth. Padres go up 3-0. Then they find themselves down 5-3. The worst part about watching the game is I had the 3-run homer is hit. Do you ever watch, Brent, and there's just no emotion? I had no emotion. I was, I should have been upset. I wasn't even upset. I was like, yeah, I get it. It's Griffin Canning. But the conversation about, well, should you have gone to Matsui lefty on lefty? Guys, we're not in the 7th inning. And the guy threw 97 pitches and he was on his last leg. We're in the 4th and he didn't pitch the first. Like that conversation, and I get why the question's there. I'm not questioning any of that stuff, but there are times you can be critical about Craig Stammen, and then there's other times where, what the hell do you want him to do? He can't get any length from his pitchers. I mean, they were okay during the series against the Atlanta Braves, but it's not like he's got really any reliable arms. I hope people are not upset about Craig Stammen today. You could find other times to be upset, but that's on Griffin Canning. That is not on Craig Stammen.
I think that you get emotionless about it now because you're expecting it to happen.
It's true.
And, I think they mentioned it on TV that when Atlanta was here in San Diego for their series, Canning, he came in and they did a starter or the opener in that series too. Mm-hmm. And Griffin Canning came in and he only got 2 outs in the inning he was in, and he gave up 4 or 5, was it 4 runs on 4 hits or 4 runs on 5 hits or something like that in his 1 inning. And then they just made the same mistake today by going, oh, we'll just do an opener and throw that guy in that couldn't even get through an inning last time. Maybe he'll get us 2 this time. So I was kind of expecting it, especially when they hit that first home run. Pretty much Michael Harris, the second, I almost called him Junior instead, but Michael Harris the second, first pitch, pretty much the Canning throws, he deposits it right out by that steakhouse place. So.
And you just knew that was going to be. And so I go back to it. There are times if we want to be critical about Craig Stammen, I'm all in. I'm all ears. Not today. I mean, you need your starting pitchers to give you something. Again, I go back to it. This dude came in the second inning, didn't even pitch the first. He can't get you out of the 4th. So there has to be a point where you just say to yourself, your starter's got to be better. Certainly Griffin Canning's got to be better. His ERA is close to 7 now. And we already have, what's the laundry list of pitchers that you can't rely on? Griffin Canning might be on the top of that list. Let's take a quick call here. Fabian calling in. What's going on, brother? Thank you for calling in San Diego Sports 760.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say, grew up here in San Diego, grew up a Padres fan. But I started really getting into it, I want to say, 2024. And you know what? All I got to say is, I agree with everything you said. It's not on Craig Stammen. It's ultimately up to Griffin Canning. What do you expect Craig to do? I mean, this is what he's got, and he's got to play with it, right? But on the bright side,
he's trying to manage a 9-inning game, right? Like, you're already going to your bullpen in the fourth. I mean, technically, if you take Kyle Hart out of the first inning, that means you'd be technically in the third inning, and you're already going to your bullpen. So, but keep going with your point.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you know what? I'm trying to, look at it at a macro level. I'm not trying to, react right after the game. Mm-hmm. But I think that the best option that this team should do is trade off pieces that are not going to be here next year. For sure, you already touched on it. Morihone is not going to be here. Mm-hmm. Maybe Michael King. We don't know. Ty France.
Sure.
Pieces. Yep. Move those pieces that aren't going to be here and keep Miller. I mean, if the team decides to sell him, realistically, prospects aren't going to, we don't know what they're going to turn out to be. I don't care if it's Leo DeVry back again, which obviously is not going to happen.
Sure.
But, keep Miller, keep him. And, the new owners that are going to come in, they said supposedly they're going to invest in the payroll, and hopefully we can sign people before the CBA negotiations, I think on December 1st ends. And yeah, I'm just ready for next year. That's all I got. I appreciate you guys taking my call.
Thank you, man. All right, by the way, if you guys want to be a part of it, 877-767-4760, 877-767-4760, 5-man calling from Chula Vista. A couple of things I want to do when we come back, because I think the conversation, and that was one of the more kind of even keel conversations I've heard about. There are guys that are not going to be on your team next year, so why don't those be the players that you look to ship? But I will tell you this, the Michael King one, if you ship away Michael King, I mean, why even play the rest of the season? That's literally the only starter that you have. When we come back, I want to play some sound from Jim Bowden, who joined Foul Territory. Really good network. That's the same network that Darren and Marty do their Friar Territory on. And basically, he's pleading for AJ Preller and the San Diego Padres to stop trading all your young pieces. We'll take a listen to that when we come back. Stay right here. You're listening on San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, I'm going to hit on all these YouTube comments right now. So I'm going to get to them right now. I got a few of them starred. I appreciate you guys throwing the comments in. So I'm going to hit on these right now, all right? Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. All right, our iHeartRadio Music Festival is back. Live performances by the Goo Goo Dolls, Kenny Chesney, Lainey Wilson, Snoop Dogg, Weezer, and more. September 18th and 19th at T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. 2 nights, 1 stage. Now's your chance to buy tickets at AXS.com. Get them now before they sell out. I'm sure a lot of people already saw this, but Pittsburgh Pirates put out something a little bit earlier today. Today we acquired right-handed pitcher Ron Marnacchio from San Diego in exchange for international signing bonus pool considerations. Maybe this is the start of the San Diego Padres slowly selling pieces. Maybe the selling process has begun. I want to play a clip here for everybody, and then I got some YouTube comments that I want to read as well. So I mentioned this, Jim Bowden, who was on the Foul Territory, one of the Foul Territory shows, part of the Foul Territory Network. Really great, just all MLB focused. I mentioned Darren and Marty do a show on their Friar Territory. I want you guys to take a listen to Jim Bowden and just listen to his, basically it sounds like a plea to AJ Preller. Stop trading all your young assets. Take a listen to Jim Bowden.
Yeah, I can't trade any more of these top prospects here. I mean, the system is so much different than it was, and you've got a problem. You've got albatross contracts that aren't going to end well. I mean, Xander Bogaerts already is an age in decline. You're not going to be able to move the contract unless you can attach him to a Mason Miller trade and tell the Yankees, hey, you can have Miller for these 3 prospects, but you got to take Bogaerts. Unless you can pull that off, I just don't think anyone's going to be willing to do that. I just wouldn't give up any more. I think the cupboard's already bare, and the few assets that you have left there, I would personally be very careful. Again, the right play for them isn't to go for it this year. The right play is to do the absolute opposite, which is listen on Mason Miller, listen on Michael King, and be very open to trying to see if you can't get 6 or 7 players back and quickly try to reboot this thing. In my opinion, that's kind of how I view it. But I wouldn't do another Ethan Salas here. I just, it's too painful watching James Wood and CJ Abrams rake every single night to sit there and trade your next guy.
No need for him to throw in the Wood CJ Abrams at the end, because he's not wrong there. And every time they do rake, or you see them in an all-star game, you're saying to yourself, wow, these are obviously some young studs. Jim Bowden not stumbling on his words. He feels very, very passionate about what the San Diego Padres should do. And frankly, I think at this point, I guess I shouldn't be surprised with any decision that AJ Preller makes. But, Brent, if I had to ask you, if I told you that a week from now AJ Preller was buying, would you be surprised? Or at this point, just based on what you've seen, where the team is, let's say they had a good 1 week stretch, would you be surprised at this point if he's still aggressive?
No, because he always buys.
Yeah.
Even that 1 year when he probably should have traded Hader and
23.
Yeah, because he knew they weren't going to re-sign him.
Mm-hmm. Blake Snell,
but he rode with them anyways. They could have got quite a haul for those 2 guys, but they rode with it because he thought they could win. So even when he there's some trade deadlines when he'll make moves, I think just to make moves so he can say that he did something instead of just standing pat. Like the 1 year where it was they got this one guy that's just fast, but he never played.
Sure.
His name's Marisnik, but he never played.
It's just action, just for action purposes.
Just say that he did something.
Yeah. I will say this, and I'm going to read a couple of these YouTube comments here that I want to go through. That's one of the more kind of maybe passionate pleas that I've heard somebody in regards to just stop, take a step back and think about what you're doing before you do it. And what he said about, listen, and selling some of your assets, the Mason Miller one, I think that's a separate conversation. I can make an argument that Mason Miller is a player that you should keep on your franchise, especially if you're not in this full rebuild mode that's gonna take 2-3 years or something along those lines. But the question is going to be, if there's big enough offers out there, does Mason Miller go? Yesterday, listening to Kevin Acee, I thought was really interesting. When John and I were doing the show, Acee said something to the effect of, that there's so much smoke
around the Mason Miller conversation that there has to be something. And yeah, I'm obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but not in turn, like he's not hearing anything specifically, but he's talking about all the other noise that's around there in regards to Mason Miller that he believes, hey, then there must be something here if that's the case. So I'm going to read a couple of these comments here on YouTube. Let's get one here. They've been tested and have failed. All right, here's another one from John. If they sweep the Marlins, it's back to being buyers. This is the crazy part to me. Man, it's almost like the worst thing that can happen is your next 9 games. I mean, you could look at it any way that you want, but their next 9 games are against trash teams right now. And when I mean trash, Miami's got a better record than them, but they've lost 9 games in a row. 9 of their last 10, 9 games in a row. The Colorado Rockies, where are the Rockies sitting right now? They're 41-63. San Francisco's 42-60. So your next 9 games are against a team that's lost 9 games in a row. This is all before the trade deadline, which is why I'm pointing out these 3 series. And then the 2 bottom teams in the bottom of the NL is, obviously who you're going to be facing here over this handful, this stretch of games. Let's get another one here. Losing both of King's starts were brutal. I agree. That first game back from the All-Star break is the game against Kansas City. King pitches that game. Padres go up 6-3 after a Ty France home run in the top of the 9th with 2 outs, and they find a way to go up 6-3 in the 10th inning. And wouldn't you know, they find a way to lose that game 7-6. All right, let me read another one here. Team has talent. This is JB on YouTube. Team has talent, but a depleted pitching roster. The Bogaerts deal has hurt the team, and they must find a way to trade him, even with a clause, package Miller, do whatever. That's how desperate we are about Xander Bogaerts. When I first started the show with John, like, why aren't more people angry at Xander Bogaerts? John just kept telling me, he's like, brother, we've been talking about this guy for 3 years. You lose your energy after a certain amount of time. He's right about that. I'm losing my energy on him, and I'm only 4 months talking about Xander Bogaerts. We got a couple of calls waiting. When we come back, we'll take a few of your calls. Plus, we got the wrap. Stay right here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by iHeartAdvertising.com. The Padres lost game 4 of their series today against the Braves in Atlanta, dropping 3 out of 4 in Atlanta. They lost 6-5 today. They're next on to Miami to start a weekend set with the Marlins tomorrow. In NFL news, the first overall pick in this year's NFL draft, Fernando Mendoza, inked his rookie contract with the Raiders today. Mendoza signed a 4-year, $57 million contract, which is fully guaranteed with an option for a 5th year. Run a business and not thinking about radio? Think again, because people are listening to radio more today than they did 20 years ago. And only iHeartRadio connects with more Americans than TV, digital, and social. Learn how radio can help your business. Call 844-844-iHeart.
It's Schaefer and Sliwa. Sean Schaefer and San Diego's own Alan Sliwa. You're Schaefer and Sliwa.
All right, hour number 2, solid first hour talking about the San Diego Padres, and not solid in what we're saying about them, but just solid hour and everybody giving their opinion on it. So shout out to the callers and shout out to everybody on YouTube. Appreciate you guys hanging out here. John Schaefer out today, so obviously doing a solo show here, and Brent holding it down as well. We're gonna get to the wrap in just a second. Let me squeeze in a quick phone call here. Ronnie is calling out in El Cajon. What's going on, Ronnie? Thank you for calling in.
All right. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Thank you.
I think my problem with Xander Bogaerts is this year you can't blame it on an injury to where you could say, like, that's why he's not performing well. And I'm just curious, why hasn't there haven't been a deep dive and why he's performed so poorly after leaving Boston? It just seems like the media, perhaps, or the management is not telling us the full story, because every time he's at bat, it just seems like he's grimacing. And I just can't understand why we're just why can't he just retire? I mean, is there a clause where the team could force the player to retire just on poor numbers? I mean, we have 8 more years of this, and how long of a how much humiliate are they trying to humiliate the man?
Well, Ronnie, let me, and I appreciate you calling, and shout out to El Cajon, where I grew up as well. So thank you for calling in, Ronnie. Here's what I'll say. I don't know who's humiliating who, because it's Xander Bogaerts that's making this has this absurd contract with the Padres for the next 8 years. Yeah, he's going to show up to work every day because that check is being cashed every 2 weeks. And we're talking about a significant payout. I mean, can you just think here for a quick second? There are conversations. I read a couple of these. See if I can just pull one of these up real quick. And look, I what can I tell you? I think you want me to simply, I think I can explain Xander Bogaerts here pretty fast, right? And tell me if you agree or disagree. What's wrong with Xander Bogaerts is he's washed. That's what's wrong with Xander Bogaerts. His best years were in Boston. And the San Diego Padres were at a stage and a point where they were trying to do everything they can to compete for a World Series. They were riding high. Aaron Judge, you didn't take our money. Trey Turner, you didn't take our money. Xander, will you take our money? And I don't know the exact numbers that the Boston Red Sox were offering for Xander Bogaerts, but it was significantly less than what the San Diego Padres were willing to give him. Now, we all kind of sat there. Look, I'm one as well. I'm like, wait, they got who? They got Xander Bogaerts. Awesome. That's the kind of vet that they need. This is somebody that's won 2 World Series. He's coming from an organization where they're used to winning. They're accustomed to winning. He could bring all of that down to San Diego. I've never heard anybody say anything negative about Xander Bogaerts, the person. Never heard anybody say anything negative about his work ethic. Never heard anybody say anything about what he brings to the table inside that clubhouse. But the man that actually holds that bat and was paid to perform on the field, it has not happened, and it ain't happening. Like, I don't know. I don't know how I could sit here and be honest with an audience and tell everybody, hey, this is going to turn around. I mean, he had a good month to the season, and everybody got excited, and then reality set back in. I'll read one of these comments here real quick. I'm just going to read this. There was a comment here that I had saved, and it was on Xander specifically. See if I could find it here. It says, no, I already went through that. Basically, people are saying that it's going to cost you Mason Miller to get out of this Xander contract. We'll see what eventually happens. Let's get to the wrap.
Hey, guys.
It's time for the wrap. Presented by Sombrero Mexican Food. Check out their website at sombreromex.com.
My bad on that one, Brent. I pump faked you. And I didn't set that up properly. That's on me, though.
No, you're all good. I just had the wrong thing up. The Raiders signed a number 1 draft pick, Fernando Mendoza, today to his rookie deal. What kind of career in the league do you think he'll have?
This one's tough. The really difficult thing when number 1 picks, for me, it's all about what organization did you end up with. If you told me that Fernando Mendoza ended up with the Packers, I would tell you that, hey, this guy, and obviously he's not there, Jordan Love's there, hey, this guy could probably have a good career because they have a track record of producing good quarterbacks, and they'll do it the right way, and they'll build around him and everything else. If you told me he went to the Los Angeles Rams, I would tell you, you know what? He's probably going to be in good hands down the road. The problem with Fernando Mendoza, he's with one of the organizations I have least confidence in as far as knowing what they're doing. My problem is it's not the player. My problem is it's the organization. And a lot of times in sports, you got to be, you have to be put in the right situation. And that's my fear for Fernando Mendoza.
I think he'll be okay.
Okay.
I think my comp is going to be kind of like the dude from Oregon, Mario
Mariota.
Yes. I think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. He's not going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he'll be a starter / backup for his career. I think that he's going to get some unfair shade just for a byproduct of being number 1. NBA.
Is he starting right away?
I think he is.
This is another thing. Now, maybe I'm old school, and
They could start with Cousins first, but I don't know. We'll see.
We grew up. Well, it's good. And I actually like the idea that Cousins is there, and I think that could be a good player for them.
Bonded. They're broing out hard.
It's phenomenal. That's good. And by the way, that's a good sign. I would say that right out the gate. We grew up in an era, and back in the day, you're going to Qualcomm Stadium, and we grew up in an era where Phillip Rivers sat for a second. We grew up in an era where Aaron Rodgers sat for a second. We grew up in an era where the quarterbacks didn't just come into the league, rookies, and they just threw them out in the fire, and they're like sink or swim. They had a second to properly develop. But now there's a lot of franchises that feel so much pressure of, we got to find that star quarterback. Not only do we have to find that star quarterback, but we're throwing him right into the mix right out the gate here. But I like the fact that Kirk Cousins is there with him. I think that's going to be a benefit to him.
I think, too, in a way, it's going to be sort of like when Andrew Bogut went number 1 in the NBA, to where he's a good player, but he's not number 1 overall pick in the draft good. So when people will look at his numbers and go, oh, yeah, if he was taken 8th in the draft, that'd be perfectly serviceable numbers. But since he's number 1 overall, if he's not averaging 28 and 12 a game, he's a flop. So I think he will get some criticism for that if he just comes out, just plays average, because you were taken number 1 overall. You're expected to be above average, not average.
All right, next question.
What's the Padres record going to be over their next 9 games?
Okay, so we're basically timing this out here, if I'm right. This is timed out to when the trade deadline, you'll get through, I want to say August 2nd, and then the trade deadline will come, and that's what we're determining here. Let's see, 3 Miami. Yep, that should be 9 games total. I'll just give you the record over that 9-game stretch, and then we'll do the math. I'll say that they will go. Do I give them the benefit of the doubt and say 6-3, or do I say 5-4 because you can't trust this team against anybody? I just saw them lose 2 of 3 against the Kansas City Royals. I'm going to say they go 6-3 and they're 500 at the deadline. What do you think?
5-4.
5-4.
I was leaning 4-5, but
brother, you could give me any number and I'm not arguing with it. And I think 6-3 is a little absurd, but I do think that I think the teams that they're playing are really bad.
It's their MO though to go 5-4 because they got to do just well enough to keep us, keep the hook dangling in front of us with the carrot to make you think that, well, there's still technically only X games out.
So let me ask you this. Let's say we're not even paying attention to the standings for a quick second, but let's say they go 5-4, which is very realistic and not crazy. And they're playing bad teams, and they're not a good team. They go 5-4. That means the day of the trade deadline, you're 2 games below 500. I mean, that in itself, I think, says everything. And I don't know if AJ Preller's got a number in his mind. If AJ Preller, I don't know if before they came back from the All-Star break, the idea was we have to be X amount of games within wild card for us to go be buyers. I don't know what that number is. But if you go 5-4, you're probably still 4 games back of the wild card because you have so many teams that are in front of you. Eventually, some of these teams are going to win. I saw Arizona's up right now 4-2 on St. Louis. If Arizona wins, then they're 4 games back. So, all right, next question.
Do you think SDFC will make the playoffs?
I'm concerned about our boys here, San Diego FC. Last night they played. Watched the whole game against the Colorado Rapids. Excited because we just watched some phenomenal World Cup. And I want to see some good soccer. I get it. I'm not watching Mbappe and Messi and the entire Spain, the entire Spain team who ended up winning the World Cup. They didn't look good. I got real concerns with SDFC. So we'll spend a little time talking about them as well. But they're now, I want to say, 11th or 12th in the standings in the standings. And they're not moving in the right direction, and they lose by giving up a goal in the 95th minute. And frankly, they just didn't have enough. It almost as if they were behind that entire game, but they would have been fortunate to get the tie. I hate to say this, but I'm leaning, from what I've seen so far, I don't think there's been anything this season to tell me that they make the playoffs. I think I'm leaning towards no on this. All right, last question.
Who's more likely to stay put at the trade deadline, Therese Skubal or Mason Miller?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think Skubal, just because he's done after this year in Detroit, and he's going to go get paid somewhere, he's going to go get paid somewhere else anyways. Now, I know he's been very vocal about wanting to stay in Detroit and compete for a World Series. Do we know how many games back that they are right now?
I think it's about 5.
5 games, so not that much different, to be honest with you, than from where the Padres are. You're right. Let me see the Tigers here. They are 4.5 back, almost identical to what the Padres are. I think Skubal goes. I think Mason Miller stays with the San Diego Padres. If you're just telling me between those two players, I think Mason Miller stays, or I think Miller stays, Skubal goes. What do you think?
I agree, because Miller's still under contract for like 3 years.
Yeah.
So
that's the advantage that they have. All right, great stuff right there. Coming up at 4:30, by the way, Sebastian Moreau is going to be joining us. He does brand ambassador for SCFC. They got some really, really cool giveaways that they got coming up. We're definitely going to help try to promote getting as many people out to this final stretch of SDFC games, which they got another game coming up on Saturday. I think they got 18 games left on the schedule. But we'll talk about SDFC coming up next. I want to spend a little bit of time on SDFC, watching that game yesterday. At 5 o'clock, Ben Golliver, who covers the NBA for ESPN, is going to join us. LeBron still has yet to make a decision. And plenty of Padres conversations. If you're in your car, you're driving around, or you listen to us on the iHeartRadio app, shout out to our callers that have been here. You can reach out 877-767-4760. I'm Alan Slewa. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.
Hey guys, it is Schaefer again for my friends at the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Make sure to get there this summer. Enjoy the hotel and spa at Jamul, where you can experience elevated luxury with their refined hotel stay featuring rooftop relaxation, indulgent spa treatments, and all the excitement of Jamul Casino Resort seamlessly brought together now in one unforgettable destination. And you can take your stay to the next level. They have exclusive hotel packages crafted for the ultimate escape. You'll love Starlight Pool when you're there this summer. You can soak up the sun and soak in the views at San Diego's ultimate rooftop pool. Day passes start at just $40, so grab your friends, relax, and make it a pool day too. Remember, and when you're at Jamul, enjoy all the dining options, including Jamul 23 with their lobster buffet every day. You can enjoy all-you-can-eat lobster every day, plus dozens of other delicious stations at the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place.
All right, SDFC returns to Snapdragon Stadium coming up this Saturday when they host FC Dallas. Our pre-match coverage with Adrian and Darren begins at 6 p.m. right here on our home for SDFC, San Diego Sports 760. Yesterday was just a bad day in San Diego. You know, I had this whole setup here. What time did the Padres play yesterday? Yeah, we left here. The game was still going on. So... Oh yeah. No, it was the worst setup that you can have. So we leave the station and I start working my way home. Right when we left, Darren's getting in here for a little, he's going to do the pregame show for SDFC in Colorado Rapids. The game is delayed, which is perfect because I can watch the whole Padre game and then SDFC is going to start after that. So I text John. Or no, I call John as I'm leaving because right as we're leaving, Padres tied the game against the Braves, tied 1 apiece. I'm like, John, we're in business here. We're in business. By the time I get home, again, this is kind of goes to the 3-run homer earlier today. There's just kind of no emotion. The wheels completely fall off in the 8th. Padres go down. What are they? 6-1, 7-1, whatever it was. And then the Padres come all the way back. And now all of a sudden to 7-6 game. And of course, that's how it ends. And it's like, yeah, of course the Padres are going to lose just by giving you a little bit of hope before they go out. And I'm like, all right. Let's get SDFC. I got to be honest about SDFC. And this is, I feel like for 2 months
of the season, and John and I have had this conversation before watching them, there's such a thirst right now for SDFC to have a great follow-up season of what they did. I mean, no franchise has ever done their first inaugural year to make it to the Western Conference Finals and be a game away from getting a chance to play against Messi in Miami. It didn't happen. Vancouver was better. Vancouver's still really, really good, but it was like, wow, what a way for San Diego to have an MLS team come here. And I don't need to tell everybody just how thirsty we are for more professional sports. And it's a perfect fit, and SCFC plants its flag. For a couple of months now, before obviously the World Cup, watching San Diego FC, nothing has gone right for this team. Nothing has gone right, so far. And I'm talking about just from a soccer perspective, nothing has gone right. And it's been a frustrating watch. And yesterday was absolutely no different. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking about games where they just have these devastating results. Whether it was up against LAFC late and they give up a late goal and they only get, I think the game ends in a tie, so they only get 1 point. The game against Cincinnati where they go up 3-2 incredibly late and you think they're going to get 3 points. Cincinnati on basically the last kick of the game ties it up. They only get 1 point. And then last night against the Colorado Rapids, and you think, the break was going to help them. It was going to benefit them. And you're just kind of hoping and praying that SDFC could start getting back into the mix. I mean, put themselves in a position where we can gain a little bit of momentum, start working their way up as far as the standings go. And no, in the 95th minute, there's 6 minutes of extra time. SDFC gives up a goal, and they end up losing the game 1-0. Go look at the standings right now. SDFC is sitting in 13th place in the Western Conference. 13th place in the Western Conference. And it's not like the Colorado Rapids are this unbelievable team. They were, I think, coming into yesterday's game, they had one less point than SDFC. But SDFC now, 17 total points. They got some work to do, and they got their work cut out for them. And, unfortunately right now watching San Diego FC, we're all hoping that this improves and they put themselves in a position where obviously they could be a part of the playoff mix again. They got to make the playoffs. I mean, that's the one thing that I'm going to say. It's just the playoffs have to be a must there. I got a chance about less than a week ago. Was it a week ago today? I think we go tomorrow. I went to the SDFC offices, got a chance to see their headquarters. It was awesome. It was really, really cool. Beautiful office out in Little Italy. And, obviously I've enjoyed coming out to some of their games. So I'm excited that their games are back here on Saturday. But we all know how this works. The winning pedigree is winning. So hopefully SDFC can start turning some things around and put themselves in a position to, get that vibe again that they had. I went to a couple of the playoff games last year. Went to a couple of the regular season games as well. Kind of caught everybody off by surprise. It's like, wait, how can you be this good? This is your first year, and they got some work to do. So hopefully SDFC can start working their way back into the mix. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do something a little bit different here. Sebastian Moria is coming to join us here. And I mentioned this, a little bit earlier. He is the brand director for SDFC. So we're going to talk a little bit about SDFC, some games that are coming up. They got some really, really cool giveaways as well that we're going to be promoting for SDFC, and looking forward to that. But he's going to be joining us again. He's the Senior VP of Brands and Innovation. They got some really cool promotional giveaways that they got coming up, specifically this game against FC Dallas as well. So we're going to have him come on the show. I might have to complain to him that I need SDFC to start winning. I mean, yesterday was just miserable. I mean, I had a hard day of work. All I was looking for, Brent, was just to come home and watch two teams handle business, the Padres and SDFC. I went 0 for 2. All right, we'll get Sebastian to join us here coming up next. We'll flip, by the way, 4:45. We'll talk a little bit NBA. 5 o'clock, we got Ben Golliver, who covers the NBA for ESPN. And then 5:15, right back to all San Diego Padres. We'll do that as well. Stay right here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show.
This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by iHeartAdvertising.com. The Padres lost game 4 of their series against the Braves today. They dropped 3 out of 4 against Atlanta. They lost today 6-5. Next, they're on to Miami to start a weekend set with the Marlins beginning tomorrow night. In NFL news, the first overall pick in this year's draft, Fernando Mendoza, signed his rookie deal with the Raiders today. Mendoza signed a 4-year deal worth $57 million, all fully guaranteed, with an option for a 5th year. Running business and not thinking about radio? Think again, because people are listening to radio more today than they did 20 years ago. And only iHeartRadio connects with more Americans than TV, digital, and even social. Learn how radio can help your business. Call 844-844-iHeart.
All right, I want to welcome in our next guest. Sebastian Mora is joining us here. He is the Senior VP of Brands and Innovation for SDFC. Sebastian, what's going on, brother? Thank you for coming on.
Hey, what's up? Thank you guys for having me.
All right, Sebastian. I mean, where do I start here? That was a tough one yesterday. Tough loss yesterday. Of course, there is a lot of excitement to get soccer back in San Diego. I thought the World Cup was amazing. So I'm sure there's a lot of San Diegans who are rooting for the United States, who are rooting for Mexico, that want to kind of keep some of that momentum. Just, kind of give us an idea from your perspective. What are you guys hoping for to go from that transition of the World Cup to getting SDFC back in action? It's the first time we've ever had a local MLS team following a World Cup. What's some of the hope here to capitalize on that?
Yeah, of course. As you mentioned, the World Cup brought a huge wave of excitement to the city. We're actually hosting official watch parties for every single game in Mission Beach. Mm-hmm. And, we had over 200,000 people come through the gates throughout the entire tournament, which confirmed the appetite for the game that we find here in San Diego. So we couldn't be more excited to start our season again. And this Saturday against Dallas at 6:30 p.m., we will be back at Snapdragon Stadium. Excited to say that, first 25,000 fans will receive an SDFC bucket hat, courtesy of our friends at Alaska Airlines. So if you're planning to go, make sure you arrive early. And if you weren't planning to go, now you have another reason to attend.
All right, I think you guys have done such a great job in this very short period of time of getting San Diegans to come out to Snapdragon Stadium and to soak in what MLS soccer is, and obviously the product that SDFC is trying to build out here. For those who have yet to come out to a game, I want you to give us a little bit of a pitch here of why a San Diegan should say, all right, let me come out on Saturday. I've not been there before. Let me experience what this thing is all about. Obviously, we know the great success SDFC had in their first inaugural season. Tell some of our listeners who are big Padre fans, they're big Aztec fans, they're San Diegans, why they got to get out to a game at SDFC.
Yeah, I mean, look, the very first reason I would give them is we provide another extremely exciting and electric atmosphere for the community to gather. That's what we're all about. We had an amazing start to our inaugural season, made it to number one seed in the Western Conference. We were one step away from the MLS Cup final. And, we became known for our style of play, exciting, attacking football, always trying to go forward, always trying to score. We have a combination of experienced guys and young guys, which is very unique to our model. And I would say other than the atmosphere and the game itself, it's supporting and repping the city and our home. San Diego is finally on the global stage with its own team. I think the bubbling energy that we've seen in the soccer space here over the last 3-4 decades with the Soccers and San Diego Loyal, San Diego Wave, and now most recently us, with the 65 plus youth clubs in the region that have, over 100,000 kids playing week in and week out. The game here is truly thriving, and we see that in our games. I think one of the unique things about soccer culture is also our supporter section and supporter culture, which is something unique to football soccer. It's the most passionate fans that prepare all season to chant and jump and drum. And there's smoke and beer showers and a lot of singing and it's just very high energy. The game is fast, and so it's a different experience from other sports as well. So yeah, I would say if you're looking for something different, electric, exciting, if you love the game or not, come and discover it because it's a one-of-a-kind entertainment experience here in San Diego.
Sebastian Moro taking some time here to join us. He's the Senior VP of Brands and Innovation at San Diego FC at SDFC. They got a game coming up this Saturday, and certainly something to keep in mind here. They'll be hosting FC Dallas. By the way, that bucket hat giveaway that you mentioned, these are phenomenal. I'm on the San Diego FC website right now. If you go to the website, you can see what the giveaways look like and how consistent they do these giveaways. So a bucket hat giveaway coming up this Saturday. Something that you said that I really do kind of love here. I love the thing you said about come out there and just support SD and represent San Diego. That to me, I think is kind of that's the selling point to me that I probably love the absolute most. You're 100% right about that. Like, I think this is, as a San Diegan myself, someone born and raised out here, I want to see, of course, Petco Park sold out. Of course, SDSU football is going to be playing at Snapdragon Stadium. I'll be going to Media Day tomorrow. We want all San Diegans to support what we got going on. And one of the quickest growing brands in all of SD is San Diego FC. So these bucket, I love that you explained it that way, because I think that's a proper way to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, look, for us, yes, it's sport and it's competitive and we want to win games. There's no doubt about that. But as I mentioned earlier, for us, this is truly creating a platform that unlocks this community's passion for sport, for its people. And that's what happens in our games. You know, all of those factors come together and they explode in an experience that is unique because it's a new product here in San Diego, and it's a new team. And I think the city has been waiting a long time to have
big time
a team in Major League Soccer.
I agree.
And we're seeing the results, you know, in such a short amount of time. We're seeing how people are showing up and really engaging with us and embracing us. And that's why, you know, we had to give that back and put this experience together that is unique in the city. And, you know, for those that have never been, I promise if you go, you won't regret it.
Got here on YouTube, I got the bucket hat. Mike Usher, who one of our associate program directors, just gave me one here. It's right here. It's rocking right next to me, so people can see it there. Just a quick reminder here as I give the plug here. Sebastian Moru, who's joining us here from SDFC, Senior VP Brands and Innovation. Game, of course, coming up, like I mentioned, this upcoming Saturday. First 25,000 fans will receive an SDFC bucket hat courtesy of Alaska Airlines. You know, it's interesting. I'm watching the game yesterday, and you know, you said something right there that hit into my head. It's going to be really one of course, as everybody there at San Diego FC wants to build off of that inaugural year, and it's going to be so important to try to make a playoff run here. Now that's coming more from somebody that's watching the game from that perspective, but. Can you just tell, I think, and this is something that I'd love for you to expand on, kind of what it looks like for families out there, flexible ticket options. I know there's family ticket bundles. Can you give, you know, somebody an idea out there? Maybe they think, hey, you know, how suitable is this for me bringing the kids? How affordable is something like this? Can you, for some listeners out there that don't know all those details, would love for you to share those details.
Yeah, of course. You know, families are the core of every community, and in San Diego is no different. And we knew that from the very beginning that this is a place where families really cherish their lifestyle and protect San Diego in that way. It was actually a huge part of us developing the club identity. It's rooting it in this idea of family and community. And so over the last season and a half, we've been really trying to listen to our fans, and we're excited to introduce new family ticket bundles with more fan-friendly F&B offerings and pricing beginning in August, a new family zone as well with an expanded experience for kids. Specifically for our season ticket members, new theme and heritage nights. And we have a new project that we're going to be announcing soon for young fans and kids that is also launching mid-August, and we're extremely excited to introduce to San Diego, because if you go to our games, you'll realize that it is very family friendly. You know, if you go around the parking lots before the game in FanFest, and the tailgate atmosphere is full of families, full of young persons, kids, barbecuing, playing the game on the parking lots. And as I mentioned earlier, with the community side of grassroots soccer, it's exactly that we're trying to bring into our match day experience. So, you know, family friendly for sure, inclusive. There's something for everyone. We feel that we've built something very distinct in San Diego, and really transformed Snapdragon Stadium into a venue for all ages and people from all different backgrounds. And so, yeah, we're excited to start again this Saturday against Dallas. And as you said, make sure you arrive early to get one of those bucket hats.
Sebastian, great stuff, brother. I appreciate you coming on. We got to get some W's here, okay, Sebastian? So I want you to walk into that locker room right before the game starts. I want you to give your whatever pitch that you have to have for this team. We got to get back on winning track here, all right, buddy? And then I know San Diego will come support the squad as well, and I really appreciate you taking the time and obviously giving us a little bit more context of what you guys got coming up. First 25,000 fans, get your bucket hat. SDFC making it happen here in San Diego, representing the city well. Thank you for the time, Sebastian.
Thank you guys for having me, and see you Saturday.
All right, buddy. Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna, go in there and give a speech to the team, but we need some W's here. We got to get some W's here. Seeing way too many teams in the Western Conference that got a better record than SDFC. All right, we're going to talk a little NBA when we come back. Apparently, by the way, just give everyone an idea. 5 p.m. Ben Golliver covers the NBA for ESPN. 5:30, John Quintero is going to come join us. The legend of San Diego, John Quintero is going to join the show. He's going to give us his thoughts of everything going on, obviously around the San Diego Padres. I got some sound that I want to play. Sham says that LeBron not waiting for anyone. Then what the hell is he waiting for? We'll hit on that. LeBron, there was a story today that LeBron may actually be taking the minimum, that there's nothing left other than the minimum. There's some more news around Jonathan Kuminga and potentially with the Los Angeles Lakers. So we'll spend a little time hitting on the NBA. They're now 3 weeks into NBA free agency, but there's still a lot of question marks still left. Stay right here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. Ben Golliver, who covers the NBA for ESPN, is going to be joining us coming up at 5 o'clock. 5:30, John Quintera. Legend John Quintera. Man, back in the day, I was just starting in sports talk radio. Actually, no, this was Extra Sports. It was Mighty 1090. I think it was Mighty 10. Extra Sports 690. But then eventually, when I'm at Mighty 1090 doing promotions, Quintera would do his his post game show after every Padres game. He'd do it. Where was it at? It was at the Hyatt downtown. Hyatt downtown? Yeah, it was Hyatt downtown. And Manchester Grand Hyatt. I don't even know if it's still called that. Manchester Grand Hyatt. Love that guy. Set up all the events, set up everything for him. Quintera's got obviously phenomenal history here in San Diego. He'll join us at 5:30, talk a little Padres. I know I teased I was going to do a little NBA. I'm just going to actually wait on that with Ben Golliver. I think we'll just do it then. And we could start some of that NBA conversation. But real quick here, and I'm going to go back to the Padres here for a quick second. There's a tweet that I just saw here. Fox Sports MLB. So the official account for Fox Sports MLB. The Padres are now 50-53 this season, but are only 3.5 games back in the NL wildcard race. Will San Diego trade their star closer? And just to get a quick update on that of how far the Padres are, I want to say Arizona now is blowing out the St. Louis Cardinals. I think I saw a few people on the chat. It's 9-2 in the top of the ninth. So the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to win, which means the Padres will officially be 4 games back of a wild card spot whenever that game ends in the next half hour or so. So they put out that question, the question I'm talking about. This is the official account on Fox Sports MLB. Mason Miller has a .86 ERA with 25 saves and 78 strikeouts. And then, obviously all the comments go from there. It's crazy, Brent, when I don't know why that kind of slaps me across the face when I read that stat. I know how good Mason Miller is. I know he's the only player that represented the Padres. I know he's the only player that represented the Padres in the All-Star game. So we know just how great Mason Miller is. But when I look at those stats, and you're another front office around baseball right now, and you feel like you got a legitimate chance of a World Series run, I'm sure I'm going to assume here AJ Preller is going to get a lot of calls on Mason Miller. Now, will a call come in that he says, hey, I got no choice but to make this move? And listen, I think there will be some egg on his face if he trades Mason Miller away one year after he traded DeVry away. And I think it does look dumb because you have Mason Miller under control, which is really the reason why you did justify giving up one of the top prospects in all of baseball. But I just look at, for some reason, just looking at this tweet and looking at those stats there, how are you not a team right now that's not the San Diego Padres, and you pick whichever team you want. Pick whatever team you think that needs literally the best bullpen guy, the best closer in all of baseball. You think Mason Miller is going to be intimidated in a playoff game? You think he's going to be intimidated in a World Series run? I think his game's only going to elevate.
Me and Fletch kind of talked about this when he was on his way out at 2:00. The Padres are holding most of the cards here, if you think about it, because any team, we brought up either this week or the end of last week, the Yankees are desperate for a closer. And even if AJ's like, hey, Mason Miller, he's not on the table, they're going to be like, well, fine, what do you want for Marhone and Adam? We hold the cards to where all the closers and like big name relief guys that people want,
it's coming through San Diego.
Yes, we have all of them. So
we just don't have starting pitching, reliable bats, and plenty of other positions. But you need a bullpen. But San Diego's got it.
But that's my point, though, is that since we hold all the cards, so any contender in the league that wants a closer, they're going to have to essentially go through San Diego to get one. So, instead of that's why I'm kind of leaning towards keep Mason Miller. Get rid of Morihone. Get rid of Adam. Ty France has never been more valuable trade market wise than he is right now. When he hit that home run today, I was like, oh, he's going to look great in the Mariners uniform again in like 3 weeks. But just get rid of a lot of these pieces. Like the caller said earlier,
I was just going to say, one of our callers, that's exactly what he said.
The pieces that we're not going to, bring back next year, we're not going to re-sign most likely. Just let them go and let's get some, guys back in our system here.
All right, so let me read something here. Dennis Lynn just put something out, covers the Padres for The Athletic, does a phenomenal job. Here, let me read a couple pieces of what he put out here. He said, Adrian Morejon, the setup man who has emerged as the hardest throwing left-hander in baseball, could end up as the best reliever moved by the August 3rd trade deadline, even as the San Diego Padres continue to take a wait-and-see approach and a summer of poor overall performance. Morejon, for those who don't know, is available after this year. So, yes, you're not going to get as much back for Adrian Morejon, but Adrian Morejon is a freaking stud. I mean, let's just, any team that trades for Adrian Morejon, your bullpen is just a ton better than it was because of how consistent, reliable. And frankly, I'd hate to see Adrian Morejon go, but I get it. If you told me, hey, we're going to keep Mason Miller, but Morejon's got to go, Ty France has got to go, I'm not going to sit here and argue against that. I would understand it, especially these players that are not going to be with your organization next season. One other piece that he says here, he says, despite the speculation swirling around Mason Miller, the club-controlled all-star seems likely to remain with the Padres, according to people familiar with the team's thinking, who are not authorized to speak publicly. So kind of gives you a little bit of an idea there, at least on those two players. Dennis Lynn, this is all within maybe the last half hour, 45 minutes, saying that Adrian Morejon could end up being the best reliever, could be available, could be moved by the August 3rd trade deadline, but also says that Mason Miller seems likely to remain with the Padres. I'm okay with that.
I agree. Yes, you're not going to get anywhere close to the same haul for Morejon and even Adam if you combine them that you would for Mason Miller, but you're going to get better than nothing, which is, I brought up earlier in the show when they decided that one year that we're not going to trade Hader, we're not going to trade Snell. What did they get out of it? Nothing. When they could have got a bunch of prospects to fill the coffers of their minor league system, have other pieces and options, but
it's tough to sell, man. It's tough to sell. And I think that team especially was incredibly tough to sell because you went out that summer and, the trade deadline before, you traded for Juan Soto. You got Xander that summer. You started locking up all these guys. And then obviously the team was so wildly disappointing in 2023. This season, I do think it's different. You don't have nearly the amount of talent. The expectations aren't the expectations as it was there. You're really just trying to grab onto a wild card spot. That was your goal coming into the season. All right, Ben Golliver covers the NBA for ESPN's coming up next. We'll kind of try to find out here, what is the latest on LeBron James? What is that conversation that's going on behind the scenes in regards to the trickle effect once LeBron does decide? How many different players are on hold? We'll hit some NBA coming up next. Stay right here. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by Hamul Casino. The Padres lost game 4 of their series with the Braves today, 6-5. They dropped 3 out of 4 to Atlanta. Next, the team is off to Miami to start a weekend set with the Marlins tomorrow. In NFL news, the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, Fernando Mendoza, signed his rookie deal with the Raiders today. Mendoza signed a 4-year, $57 million fully guaranteed deal with an option for a 5th year. Make Sundays your summer escape at Hamul Casino Resort Starlight Pool Parties. Enjoy rooftop views, live DJs, cocktails, cabanas, and poolside vibes all season long. Every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Hamul Casino Resort.
It's Schaefer and Sliwa. John Schaefer. San Diego's own Alan Sliwa. Your Schaefer and Sliwa.
Our final hour of the Schaefer and Sliwa Show, San Diego Sports 760. Want to welcome in a great guest that does a phenomenal job covering the NBA for ESPN, Ben Golliver. Nice enough to take some time. What's going on, Ben? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, Alan. Back here in LA after almost 2 weeks in Vegas for Summer League. It feels great to be home. But I thought it was a really entertaining and star-studded Summer League this year. And I know the Lakers fans are all pretty excited about how they played. So it was a great time all around.
All right, 2 weeks in Las Vegas. Is that, tell me, I don't know if I've ever done more than maybe 4 days in Vegas. Do you start, where were you mentally after 10 days?
Well, you know, I've been doing Summer League almost 20 years now, so I'm kind of used to it. I will say it's always tough. You know, you hit about 4 days, and it's really like a brick wall. This year, though, we never got above, I think, 107 was as hot as it got. Okay. There's been some years where it's up to like 118, 119, and that's really where you start to just question all your decisions in life and how did I get here and those kinds of things. But you know, this year was smooth. You know, I'll say this: there wasn't quite as many fans at the building, so it felt a little bit more intimate. You know, it's a great scouting experience. You get to see all the top guys up close and personal. And it was an amazing draft class this year, obviously headlined by A.J. DeBanza, but all the top guys played. You know, nobody sat out. You know, maybe some guys went home a little bit early, but we got a really good look at everybody. So it was worth the heat. I'll put it that way.
Fun stuff. That's awesome. All right, Ben Golliver covers the NBA for ESPN. Ben, let me start with this. Here we are, July 23rd. You know, we've heard a lot of chatter. What's LeBron going to do? How come he hasn't made a decision? This, that. Let me just ask you this. How much business is there still left around the league once he makes his decision? How much is this kind of holding up? What's going to be, I guess you could say, the trickle-down effect once he finally makes a decision?
Well, there is still some business that's non-LeBron related that hasn't been taken care of. You look at that restricted free agency market, you know, Jalen Duren's probably the biggest name, and he's still waiting. And then even the Clippers are kind of trying to figure something out with Benedict Mathurin, Peyton Watson's kind of up in the air. So that restricted free agency market will probably start to move once the bigger dominoes go. And those are some really key players, right? Like Denver, if they have Peyton Watson, okay, you can call them a contender. If they lose Peyton Watson for nothing, we're all looking around saying, man, they had a horrible summer. And kind of same thing with Detroit coming off a 60-win season. Like, you expect them to figure it out. But, you know, still, I'm sure it's a nervous time for everybody involved. So it's not just about waiting for LeBron. I think the other way to look at it, though, is you've got some pretty prominent teams in the mix for LeBron, right? Like Cleveland was in the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami has been finals a couple of years ago. They want to get back there with Giannis. Golden State, of course, is trying to figure things out with Steph, and Draymond has been a free agent as well. So he's also waiting. But these are teams that will have to do something whether they get LeBron or not, right? So I do think most of this year's free agency action was done in like the first 48 hours. You know, that was usually how it goes. But I do think we're going to see a second burst, around the LeBron decision.
What you think we're sitting here a week from now and LeBron's still no decision? Or do you think we're kind of reaching a point where he's going to have to come to a decision hopefully sooner than later?
You know, it's really interesting, talking to different people, back at ESPN. When are you going to take your vacation? Is now safe? Is now not safe? You know, everybody's paranoid that the day they go on vacation is the day LeBron's going to announce, right? So I think he's got a lot of people waiting on pins and needles. I don't have any insight into, where he's at with his decision. It feels like there was a little bit of a pump fake or a head fake last week where it seemed like it was about to come and then it didn't. So I think that we're all sitting around waiting. Not the first time we've been here, by the way. I mean, I'm sure you remember back when he went to Cleveland, when we returned to Cleveland in 2014. I mean, the entire league was stopped for like 7 days. No business was done until he made his decision. And so I guess one way to look at it is, he's a little bit later in his career. It's not like he's put the entire NBA on hold, but certainly a lot of NBA media members are on hold right now.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful thing with LeBron, he definitely he's not thirsty for attention at all. This is just, he's got a lot of decisions to make there. Of all the teams that are mentioned, and just kind of looking at it from your own personal perspective, is there a team that you think, hey, this would be the best fit from a basketball perspective, from a chance to compete from a championship perspective?
Well, look, LeBron loves to have the ball in his hands. The comparison I go back to is when he was on that Paris Olympics team. He was basically the point guard, right? And his scoring number came down, but he was by far the best distributor on that team. That was obviously a very stocked Olympic team, right? But it was his job to make sure Steph Curry was involved. It was his job to make sure KD was involved. It was his job to step back late in games sometimes and just let Curry cook, right? He was really in a game manager mold. I think that's actually the best role for LeBron right now. I think asking him to be like a two-way wing where he's trying to do everything. And, he showed he could do it in the first round against the Houston Rockets. It was an incredible performance by him, especially so late in his career against so many young guys. I just don't know if that's sustainable. So when I look at his options, where can he really play point guard? Where can he really orchestrate? Well, I see Golden State has a offensive system that isn't really built that way, right? I look at Cleveland, if James Harden is there, I don't know if that makes sense. Now, if James Harden isn't there, that one could make some real sense. I look at Miami, and they just have a massive hole in terms of playmakers. And I think their best option right now, Miami's, is to just put the ball in Giannis's hands. But he has not really thrived. He's a pretty good offensive engine in terms of being able to create, drive and kick 3-pointers for his teammates. But he gets a lot of turnovers, a lot of charges, player control fouls, that kind of thing. And so I actually think that LeBron in Miami as the lead ball handler with Giannis still in place as the number one scoring option could really make some sense from a basketball perspective. So, we'll see if they agree. I do think, LeBron's brought up all these other factors in terms of, happiness and, those kinds of things. I do think he's happiest when he has a big offensive role. And so I think that's going to be a big part of it. I don't think it's just about lifestyle or market or golfing or all that kind of stuff. LeBron doesn't want to go out there and just, get cardio, run up and down the court on somebody else's team. He wants to be a part of it.
Ben Golliver, who covers the NBA for ESPN, joining us here, Schaefer and Sliwa Show. Ben, I saw yesterday, I think it was yesterday, it came out, ESPN did their off-season grades. And, everybody, there's a couple teams incomplete for reasons, the Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers, Toronto Raptors. But, throwing out grades, I think the Spurs had an A, the Utah Jazz had an A, Lakers were a C+, just naming some of the teams off the top of my head. Just when you look back at the offseason, is there a team or two that you really thought made some, made some great moves or some great trades that you just feel like are in a phenomenal position going into next year?
Well, it's really interesting because if you look at the very top of the league, the very, very best teams, right? I think one reason why San Antonio gets an A from what you're describing is that they're the one true contender, like tier A contender, that didn't take a big hit in terms of key players. Like you look at Oklahoma City, they lose 3 guys, right? Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, Lou Dort. Obviously, Dort's the most important of those 3, but that's like a real hit. Their depth is not going to be what it was last season or the year before. Even though they've got a bunch of young guys to replace those guys, they're just going to be a different team. You look at New York, Mitchell Robinson was a key piece for New York, and now he's gone, right? And so they have to replace him with a downgrade in Andre Drummond. You look at Boston, they blow their core up, and they don't have Jaylen Brown anymore, right? So a lot of the very top contending teams, I would argue, took a step back this year, right? And a lot of it's salary cap related in this parity era, right? So San Antonio, to me, winds up being a winner. Now, did they have a huge move to them or no? I mean, their biggest deal was they re-signed Victor Wembanyama on a kind of a discount, and they grabbed Tobias Harris. I don't think Tobias Harris is a complete game changer for them, but just based on the fact that they didn't go backwards, among the top tier, they wind up being winners. Now, I do think in terms of a team that should be really happy with how this summer went, I would look at Utah. I mean, of course, they jump up in the draft lottery, so they get Darren Peterson at number 2. He's a very, very intriguing player, very talented scorer. But I think they mostly have to be really happy about how they handled their center position. Rather than overpaying to keep Walker Kessler, trying to sign him to some gigantic contract, they're able to get Yusuf Nurkic kind of as a stopgap on an affordable deal, and they're able to sell very, very high on Kessler to the Lakers. I think Kessler is going to be an amazing fit with Luka. Talking to Kessler in LA, he was very excited about the possibilities of playing with Luka and being able to help out on the defensive end as well. But if you're able to get all those draft picks from the Lakers and, kind of control their future, if you're the Utah Jazz, for a guy who was pretty injured last year and hasn't really been a big-time player in the NBA, you've got to do that. So I would definitely put Utah in that category of winners.
Ben, the Jonathan Kuminga conversation, and I don't know if this is just me because I do spend a lot of time also covering the Lakers, but the Kuminga conversation has been very active this summer. And what do you make of all the chatter around Kuminga, and if you think he would be a good fit with the Lakers, if he's going to end up somewhere else? Just a lot of, I don't even know if I want to call it hype, but a lot of chatter around Jonathan Kuminga over these last couple of weeks.
Has got himself to that polarizing conversation where he's a regular topic on social media because he's been in some contract disputes going back to the Warriors days, right? And so everybody feels like they have to have an opinion about him. I would generally say that the idea of Jonathan Kuminga in terms of the big physical wing who can score and rebound, and it sounds really, really good. The player that I've watched over these last couple of years, I don't think has actually been as effective as the idea. The theoretical Kuminga is better than the actual Kuminga. If I was the Lakers, I would not be trying to move heaven and earth to get him. I would be trying to, create some huge salary slot to kind of make the sign and trade work. I think he's a fine player who would fit. You want size on the wing. Obviously, they have a lot of holes to replace, with LeBron leaving, Rui leaving. I mean, the front court is going to look very different next year. But I would just caution against, investing too much. You look at the track record. Golden State was very careful to avoid giving him the big money long-term deal. I think that was a prudent and wise decision by Golden State. You look at Atlanta, they gave him a second chance, and they also had the same opinion. This guy is not somebody who we need to be a part of our long-term core. You look at what they did, they preferred to have Lou Dort, and trade for him as opposed to keeping Kuminga, right? And so I think that sometimes when a guy gets bounced around like that, you understand that there's reasons behind it. I think that he's a player who views himself as a potential star, and that could be a good thing. But for the Lakers, they don't need a star in that spot, right? They just need a role player. And so, I look at how Tiro played for the Lakers Summer League team. They got some good minutes from Arthur Kalama. They just had a couple of guys who were in similar spots who you could have for way, way cheaper than what Kuminga is supposedly wanting. And I would probably go forward with that as my strategy, because if it doesn't work, then it's going to be another ordeal to move on from him. And I don't think Golden State's looked back. I don't think there's been any regret on their end about how the Kuminga era ended up in Golden State. And I think that the Lakers should heed that experience.
That's interesting. It's a really good take right there and a good perspective. Ben, appreciate you coming on, brother. Thank you for joining the show. Much appreciated down here in San Diego.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Take care.
All right. That is Ben Golliver, covers the NBA for ESPN. Great job. Fantastic stuff from him. His content is phenomenal, and his takes on the NBA are great as well. All right, we come back. I want to do a couple things here. I want to react to a couple of things he said in regards to LeBron. I still haven't played the latest on the LeBron front. Brian, I want to go back with you on a couple things in regards to what Ben mentioned. At 5:30, John Quintera is going to join the show. We're going to talk some more Padres baseball. More on this Dennis Lin article as well that came out maybe in the last 45 minutes or so. Some really interesting stuff there. I'll take a look at some of these YouTube comments as well. We'll get in this, get those squeezed in as well. I'm Alan Slewa. This is San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, with the iHeartRadio app, you can stream us wherever you are 24 hours a day. Just search for San Diego Sports 760 to stream us live all day, every day. You can leave your comments for us using the TalkBack microphone. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want us to talk about. Make us a preset so we can pop up each time you open the app. San Diego Sports 760, always live on the radio app. Great stuff from Ben Golliver. Coach John Quintero is going to join us in about 10 minutes. And the final half hour will be very, very heavy on the San Diego Padres. I just want to finish our NBA conversation here. Ben was nice enough to join. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. He just mentioned that there's probably going to be a second wave of free agency. Brent, I've covered the NBA. I think this is my 10th year covering the NBA. And I don't think I ever remember anything this late. Like, people truly, if you're somebody that works around the NBA, everybody's gone by the time NBA Summer League is over. Like, it's supposed to be completely done. And that was on Sunday. July 23rd, you heard him talk about all the restricted free agents that still haven't got figured out. I mean, even Jalen Duren, Peyton Watson, like guys that can have a significant impact on a team. Draymond Green's deal is still not done, and that's, I know, waiting on the LeBron front. And then you got LeBron James. Let's play this here real quick. There was a report yesterday from Kevin O'Connor of Yahoo Sports basically saying that, hey, one of the theories out there of why LeBron hasn't made a decision yet is potentially their squad, or LeBron is waiting to see if one of these teams will trade for Anthony Davis or trade for Kyrie Irving. And that could sway him. Take a listen to Shams, not specifically addressing it, but in a roundabout way.
Now that we're 20 days in, there's nothing left. The teams are the teams. The information's the information. LeBron has everything he needs to make a decision. The conversations have happened. They're not, from my understanding, my sources tell me the LeBron James, his agent Rich Paul, that inner circle, they're not waiting for another domino right now. They're not waiting for Anthony Davis to get traded anywhere. They're not waiting for anyone else to move around anywhere. The teams, Cleveland, Miami, Golden State, Philadelphia, Minnesota, they're set. Those are the teams. Wherever he ends up, I mean, you're looking at minimum deals, you're looking at exceptions. The contracts are not going to be this grand part of this deal. LeBron James was very clear from the very beginning. This is going to be based on a happiness in terms of chance to contend for a championship, a chance to compete at a high level, join a culture. That doesn't come from going to a team and then gutting that team from multiple different players. Now, listen, if during the first week of July, LeBron James and Rich Paul told, the Heat or the Cavs or the Warriors, hey, we need you to do this and we're coming, those teams might have done that, but that message was not delivered. And so you just kind of have to read between the lines. If you're some of these teams, you need to figure it out. But it's at a point now, July 23rd, it's really up to LeBron James. The entire NBA is waiting on LeBron James' decision. I feel like, Pat, we're having two different free agencies trade periods in the NBA. We had the one over 3 weeks where all those trades happened, like you mentioned, Giannis, LaMelo, Jaylen Brown, Kawhi Leonard. And now we're 3 weeks into July, and you're going to have the LeBron James domino. And again, we'll see. Does LeBron James fall before your album or after your album? We're about to figure it out. I think it's going to be before, but we'll see. So once that happens, though, you're going to get a string of other things.
All right, that's Shams on the Pat McAfee show, kind of saying the same thing. It's going to be two separate free agencies. I saw this also on Twitter. It's becoming increasingly likely that LeBron James will have to sign the minimum with a team of his choice this summer per ESPN. What do you make of all this, Brent?
It's going to take him a while.
Even, you mean like a while from now? I think it's happening before I think it's happening before August 1st.
I was just gonna say at the earliest, I think at the end of next week. At the earliest.
Well, what's left then?
Well, for him, I just think this is going to be his last free agency decision that he ever makes. So
But is something going to change?
No, but I understand that. I'm one of these people that I'll sit there for an hour because I can't decide if I want pizza or cheeseburgers for dinner. So
but you didn't sit there for 3 weeks.
No, but I didn't have a big situation or a big thing like that to where, the scenario wasn't I can only have pizza or cheeseburgers for the next 3 years and then I'm never going to get to have either one of them again. That's kind of what LeBron's going through, to where this is going to be the last team that he picks and this is going to be his last destination and he wants to make it right. And I think it would be an easier decision, because we've talked about how all pretty much the salary numbers are the same no matter where he's going to go.
Yep.
I think it would be an easier decision if, and yes, I know he doesn't need the money, but it would be an easier decision to make if it was one team's offering, X and then all the other teams are way below it, to where it could make
the fact that decision. It's all around the same money.
Yes, because everything's pretty much level. And I think it's coming down to a pros and cons thing of, well, I like this team, but if I go to this team, if I go to Miami, I don't have to pay taxes. I got Pat Riley there running the organization. But if I go here, to Philly, I'll have easily the best starting lineup I've ever had in my life.
You've been more sympathetic on the time thing. I think for me, I don't know what I yesterday I mentioned, if part of this has to do with, all right, he's trying to figure out if they can add another piece in Anthony Davis, something like that I think is more justified, but we're pretty deep into this. I will say that it will be kind of interesting to just have a lot of NBA news coming down basically August 1st, right? Or within the next week or so. I think that does make free agency a little bit unique.
I think in a way it could be good for the NBA.
Sure.
Because instead of just front loading everything like they typically do in the first, 3 days of free agency and then, ghosting for the rest of the, 2 months of the summer, this way at least is kind of spreading it out a little bit.
Yeah.
And granted, I know you're one of them. People are getting sick of, waiting on him to make up his damn mind. But I think if that's going to prolong
the conversation,
conversation and attention to the NBA in the offseason, it could be a good thing.
All right, John Quintera coming up next. Of course, one of San Diego legends going to join us here. San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by iHeartAdvertising.com. The Padres lost Game 4 of their series against the Braves today, 6-5. They dropped 3 out of 4 in Atlanta. The next, they're on to Miami to start a weekend series with the Marlins tomorrow. In NFL news, the first overall pick in this year's NFL draft, Fernando Mendoza, signed his rookie contract with the Raiders today. Mendoza signed a 4-year, $57 million fully guaranteed deal with an option for a 5th year. Run a business and not thinking about radio? Think again, because people are listening to radio more today than they did 20 years ago. And only iHeartRadio connects with more Americans than TV, digital, and even social. Learn how radio can help your business. Call 844-844-iHeart.
All right, welcome back to San Diego Sports 760, of course, live on the iHeartRadio app. I want to welcome in one of the best in the business, one of the legends of San Diego Sports Talk Radio, Mr. Coach John Quintera himself. What's going on, Coach?
Oh, Alan, good to hear your voice. Great to have you back in San Diego. I can tell you that. I know a lot of the people I run into on a regular basis say, man, great to have Alan Sliwa back in the 619.
Oh, I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much. All right, let's start here, Coach. Actually, I don't even know where to start. We're sitting here 50-53, and I think officially now, because Arizona beat St. Louis, the San Diego Padres are now officially 4 games back from the wild card. And Coach, you know this better than anybody else. We've been having that conversation about, hey, this is going to be such a critical stretch, and you know what. We'll just use the All-Star game as an example. Oh, what's it going to look like? You got 3 against Kansas City and then 4 against the Braves. They're 2-5 coming out. Just as you sit here today, what are some of the things that are going through your head when we talk about the Padres and their current position and their current situation?
Oh man, Alan, like you said, I don't know where to start right now. I mean, you're obviously trying to salvage this season, but you also have to look at the future. And, I'm looking at a variety of different things right now. We've heard about, different trade possibilities. We keep hearing Mason Miller's name. But let's just talk about the ball club in general, because they think they can get in the playoffs. And, I guess if your goal is to get in the playoffs, yeah, certainly they're 4 games back in the wild card. They certainly have a puncher's chance right now to get in the playoffs, but they're going to have to get better starting pitching. They're going to have to be much more consistent swinging the bat. I don't know, after 103 games, I don't know if anything's really going to change all that much. We can't, keep waiting for Musgrove and Pavetta and Jason Adam and all those guys to come back right now. I think you got to look at it from an organizational standpoint. And I think even though we hear there's been a lot of conversation, and I'm sure there's ongoing conversation with the present owner and the potential new owners, because that hasn't been officially announced yet, on what they can or can't do at the trading deadline. I think they're going to have to peddle some guys. I think they've got to, I hate to say punt on the season, but they got to look at the big picture here. I mean, we could maybe squeeze into the playoffs this year, but are we really going to be able to do anything dynamic? I don't think so. I think they're too short on the mound, and offensively they have a hard time hitting against good pitching. So I think you got to start looking to move some of these guys and get some of this money off the books. And because of that, that's why Mason Miller may be an ex-Padre at the trading deadline, because they're going to have to use him maybe to force a team to take one of these other big contracts that they want to get rid of.
Coach, man, so many layers to this, but let me ask you this first. I think the question that you said about, all right, even if you got in as a wild card, are you really a threat to make any noise? Do you think for AJ Preller, I don't want to call it desperate, but do you think there's a piece of AJ Preller that's like, hey, I'm willing to take my chances as long as they get in? Anything can happen, and you've seen other teams that have got in as a wild card team and end up at the World Series or end up winning a World Series. Do you think there's a piece of AJ Preller that's like, I'll take my chances. I don't know. Maybe this window's already closed. Maybe it's on its way of closing. You think he would take that risk and say, even if it just means we get in a wild card spot and they don't go anywhere, I'd rather be in that position than the latter?
Well, I think AJ's a competitor. You always want to be in the postseason, no matter what you have to do to get there. The problem we got here, Alan, is you got a lot of aging veterans that are making a lot of money. It's going to really limit the flexibility going forward. We don't know if Joe's going to come back this year and pitch. We don't know if he's going to pitch next year in the final year of his deal. I can tell you this, a lot of people haven't talked about this, but August 22nd is a big day for the Padres and Nick Pivetta. If he's not back pitching at the big league level by August 22nd, the Padres can get out of his contract for next year with no buyout, I think. So, I know Pivetta wants to get back, but you got Michael King, who at the end of the year is got a $5 million buyout, but he got a player option. If he wants to come back next year and doesn't take the buyout, he'll be making $28 million next year. And the following year, as a player option with no buyout, he'd be making $30. I don't know if the Padres can afford to pay Michael King $28 and $30 million. I mean, I think in 2024 he was very good. I thought he was okay last year when he was healthy. I think he's pitched pretty well this year, but you're talking about a lot of money, and especially when you start talking about, Bogart's making $25 million a year through 2033. You got Machado, who's going to be making $35 million starting next year for 7 years, and every December 1st he's going to get a $5 million signing bonus from that deal he signed back in 2023. So Manny will be on the books for $40 million for 7 years, and then of course Fernando's contract is escalating. So, and you got no real prospects coming up right now that are close to the big league level. So they got to get some good young ball players in here one way or the other. And if they got to punt on this season to get rid of some of this money, and, Mason Miller, man, I hate to see that guy go, Alan, but, to maybe move one of these other big contracts, they may have to let him go. And it sickens me because they've got him under contract. And he'll have arbitration, but he's under contract and won't be a free agent until after the 2029 season. And he's the best closer in baseball. So the Padres with these contracts have backed themselves in a tremendous corner between bad contracts that I think and the trading away all these young, talented prospects to other ball clubs over the years.
Coach, what would it say to you if they did trade Mason Miller and however you want to look at it, if they traded Mason Miller because they felt like they got a haul back in return and, understand that the value that he has, and there's so many teams that feel like they're a Mason Miller away from competing for a World Series or being the favorite to win a World Series, what would it say to you that what they gave up a year ago to get Mason Miller and then 1 year later trade Mason Miller? What are some of the things that would come to your mind if that happened?
Well, it really depends on who they get in return. And I'm not a big believer at the trading deadline. A team that's going to trade for Mason Miller, they're trying to win a world championship. And they're not going to tear their major league ball club apart to get Mason Miller. Sure. I think if they really wanted to trade Mason Miller, they need to wait till the off season. They could put together a real blockbuster, get multiple players, maybe, get players from the Padres as well. And, a 4-for-2 trade or a 5-for-2 trade. Obviously the Padres would get the bulk of the players back, and you might be able to get rid of a salary. I've always been one that when you trade during the off season, it's a little bit better. You're probably going to get a little bit more bang for your buck. I don't think if the Padres traded Mason Miller right now, unless they attached a Bogart's contract or a Machado contract to it. And by the way, both those guys have no trade clauses in their contract right now. I don't think you would be getting a fair value, no matter how many prospects, because we need some guys that can come in and help try to compete in 2027. Because, Alan, I look at the farm system. I mean, most of these guys are 30th. Down in A-ball, and they're so far away. They're almost suspects, not prospects right now.
The great Coach John Kentera joining us here on San Diego Sports 760. Coach, you said something, and I know that we're not sitting in the front office with AJ Preller making these decisions, but How if you take us behind the scenes with all your experience in baseball, how do you think they look at the next 9 games that the Padres have? Miami Marlins, who have lost 9 games in a row, and the San Francisco Giants and Colorado Rockies, who are both have the 2 worst records in the NL. Let's just say the Padres went on a good stretch here and they went 7-2 over that 9, or maybe even 6-3, something along those lines. Is Preller making a decision based off of, like, could he be swayed by winning against this caliber of teams over this 9-game stretch?
Well, I think once you get to 500, you got a shot. But I mean, they're 3 games under. You got so many teams to climb over right now. I mean, you take a look. I mean, Washington, I don't think they have the pitching to compete, but they've scored more runs than any team in baseball right now. And they're 2 big offensive guys, or 2 former Padres that went in the Juan Soto deal. Cubs aren't going away. Phillies aren't going away. I mean, it's going to be a tough climb, and they're going to have to, play better on the road. They played very well early on the road this year, and now they've played very poorly on the road. They're playing a little bit better at Petco Park. But the bottom line, I think you got to look at the short term. You got to look at long term. If you want to make a run for it this year, great. That's their decision. I hope it works out really well. I love postseason baseball in San Diego, but at the end of the day, you might be, really hurting your chances in 27 and 28 if you hang on to some of these guys that you ought to move.
Just to kind of simplify this, the smart thing to do, let's take all emotion out, because I'm with you. We can get emotional about this, and we could say, well, San Diego's never won a World Series before, so any shot you got at getting into the postseason, take your chance. What's the wise thing to do if you're thinking about the present and the future? What should the San Diego Padres do?
I think you got to try to peddle as many of these contracts as you can. I mean, Jake Cronenworth's having a rough year. I know he had a concussion, but he hasn't really played well. I mean, his best year, quite frankly, was the COVID year. If you look it up and you want to look at OPS and OPS plus, and that was the year, Alan, where they were playing against the National League West and the American League West, and they were seeing the same pitchers, every few weeks. And Cronenworth's gone backwards as an offensive player, and he's making, $12 million up until 2030. I think we can find a second baseman that's cheaper and probably more productive. I think Ty France, they hit a home run on him. He's been pretty much a journeyman, but doing a very nice job. I think they probably have to bring him in. I don't know if you're going to give him a 2 or 3 year contract. He may end up out on the free agent market. We'll see. And again, I mean, is Manny and Bogarts, are they going to get back to being what they once were? I mean, Manny's still playing a great third base, and Bogart's playing great at short. I have no problem with those guys defensively. But, Manny's hit the home runs, but, hitting a little over 200. Bogarts is, working his way back to 200 right now. And, they're not the players that they're making too much money for what they're bringing to the table, the bottom line.
All right. Well, interesting next 10 days or so, Coach. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for doing this, buddy. And we'll have you on soon. Let's do something right after the trade deadline and get your thoughts on what the Padres end up doing.
Hey, look forward to it, Alan. Again, great to have you back in San Diego, my friend. You're one of the great guys in this business.
I appreciate you, Coach. Thank you very much. That's the great Coach John Quintero right there, breaking down the San Diego Padres. All right. Let's give our thoughts. Let's react a little bit to it. I mentioned that Dennis Lin contract. There's a lot of people on YouTube that got a lot of comments right now that we'll take a look at as well. The interesting stuff there. Quintero basically saying to an extent, you got to kind of start tearing this thing down. Even talking about Mason Miller, and if you can have Mason Miller go, but you're getting rid of some of these contracts, it might be worth it. We'll talk about all that coming up next. San Diego Sports 760 live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. Thank you to the coach, John Quintero, for joining the show. Interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. Kind of listening to him talk about how you might have to give up Mason Miller just to get off of some of these other contracts. And, we've heard a lot of different people kind of weigh in on Mason Miller. This is not just a local story. Mason Miller that's a national topic. Mason Miller was a national topic early in the season because of how good he was and the Padres were winning games. And, hey, can this guy actually potentially compete for a Cy Young award? Just because of how just electric he is. The problem is that's stalled because the Padres they're not winning enough games to put Mason Miller in a position where you see him more. And listening to coach, they got to clean this thing up. And probably one of the few ways to clean things up is by trading away Mason Miller. I mean, what a blow for the franchise if that's the case. And listen, I'm not telling you that I don't understand it. If it happens, I'll understand it. If they don't trade him, I'll understand it as well. I did mention this article from Dennis Lin, which I think sheds a little bit more light. It sounds like if the Padres are going to trade anybody out of that bullpen, the more likely scenario is Adrian Morejon, who's been an absolute stud for the San Diego Padres. I mean, I love Adrian Morejon, but the problem with Morejon is he's a pending free agent. There is a market. I think Dennis Lin does a really good job talking about if you go look at the market right now for bullpen guys, just use as an example, the Red Sox went on this crazy run. Would they win 15 games in a row? So they're not a team that's selling anymore. Aroldis Chapman was one of the players that you thought would be open in the market. Doesn't look like he's going to be. Josh Hader has a full no trade protection as part of his 5-year, $95 million deal with the Astros, and the Astros are probably going to be buying at the deadline. So the value for somebody like Adrian Morejon, you can still try to recoup. You could still try to clean up some other positions that you have holes in without trading Mason Miller away. And again, Dennis Lin is reporting that at least internally, even though it's getting all the headlines, that he said, according to people familiar with the team's thinking who are not authorized to speak publicly, that Mason Miller likely to remain with the San Diego Padres. So we'll see what happens. There's still a lot of time left. What I think is going to muddy the water, just a piece here. By the way, do you know what Fangraphs now has the San Diego Padres as far as their chances of making the postseason? What do you think that number is now, Brent?
This includes today's loss?
Includes today's loss. 2-5 in the second half of the season so far.
5 point something.
Hey, 7.1. All right, maybe the chances are better.
Guess I should have went with it.
Fangraphs calculated playoff odds fell to a mere 7.1%. Diamondbacks beat the Cardinals a little bit earlier, so now the Padres are 4 games back. Look, it just doesn't look good. And it doesn't look good, not because of there's this unbelievable competition in the NL. Yeah, the top it's top heavy. The players up top, of course, we know them, and not just the Dodgers. You could put Milwaukee in that mix as well. I mean, they've tended to choke when it come postseason, but this is all on the Padres. Just the Padres have not sold anybody. Tell me how they have sold AJ Preller that AJ Preller should invest more. Now, Preller may do it anyways. Preller just may say, "Look, I've been digging this hole for a couple of years. Why stop now?" We're talking about this. John and I were talking about this yesterday, and it's the absolute truth. It's the reality. Like, I don't think AJ Preller is worried about his job. I think AJ Preller is worried about, you heard John say this, Quintero say it, that he's competitive and he wants a shot of getting back to the postseason, but this team just can't give him any reasons to do it. I mean, even if they just split this freaking series against the Atlanta Braves, we can sit here and say, all right, you took you went 2-2 against the Braves, and you had one earth-shattering loss against the Kansas City Royals when they went up 6-3 in the 10th inning to start the second half of the season on Friday night. But they've lost both of these series. 3 out of 4 of the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, they lose to the Kansas City Royals. And now they got this stretch coming up here, which is going to be wildly deceiving. This stretch of 9 games against the Miami Marlins, who've lost 9 games in a row. And I mentioned San Francisco and Colorado. They can come out of that 6-3. They could come out of that 5-4. Did it really prove anything? I don't know if it did. So I think this is going to be a kind of a fascinating, of all the teams out there that are in a position to potentially buy or in a potential position to sell, how are teams not just fascinated with the San Diego Padres in their situation? So still a lot to figure out. And I know there's going to be one group of the fan base that's going to say, sell this damn thing. What the hell are we trying to build for? They even if they made the postseason, they're going to make no noise. And I'm sure there's a part of Padre fans that are saying, no, I don't want to slip away. I don't want to slip away.
That's why I thought when Dave called in earlier today that his analogy about the Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin, about half the group is going to be sell, and then the other half is going to be in the pumpkin patch just waiting and hoping that they just make the playoffs.
Yeah,
I think that's a good analogy.
I almost don't think now it's going to be half. Now I think you're going to have more people probably saying that, hey, this ain't going to happen. All right, thank you to everybody that tuned in. Appreciate it. If you missed anything, you could always catch everything on the iHeartRadio app, so don't forget there on the iHeartRadio network. I'm Alan Sliwa. Thank you to Brent. Thank you to our guests, San Diego Sports 760, live on the iHeartRadio app.